What is up, everyone? JD here. Hope you're doing well today. We're going to be doing my full review of the Civivi Sentinel Strike. Let's get into it. Okay, what we're going to do today is we're going to do some size comparisons. We're going to do profile comparison, and then we'll jump into my thoughts and impressions on the Sentinel Strike. So let's go ahead and kick it off with the budget comparisons. Here it is against the also recent released Civivi Vision FG, which is more of a medium-sized knife, a bigger medium-sized knife, but I wanted you to see just how full size the Sentinel Strike is in comparison to that in case you only picked up one of these two. Here it is against the Civivi Praxis, which is going to be just a little bit longer overall in length. I'm trying to line those pivots up. So a little bit longer on the blade and a little bit longer on the handle. So this is really a large knife from Civivi. Let's go ahead and move these budget knives out of the way. We're going to kick it off with a couple additional comparisons. We already kicked it off. We're going to bring out a couple additional comparisons. We're going to start with the Para 3, which is going to be a 3-inch blade, and then here it is against the Shaman, which everyone who has a Shaman knows is a very large knife, and the Sentinel Strike is actually going to be longer. Pretty impressive for those of us that like a larger knife. If you don't like a larger knife, this isn't for you. Lastly, but not least, here it is against the Migaron Couric or the Couric 2. We're going to move the Shaman out of the way, and we're going to bring out the tactile knife Maverick. So this is obviously, we've run through a bunch of comparisons. You can see, if you're familiar with any of these, this is definitely a large knife. Let's check out the profile though, because even though it is quite large, it has a good thickness to it. It's not overly thick. You can see here it is against the tactile Maverick, which is another thin knife, and it just has a shade more thickness than the Maverick. And then we'll bring the Shaman out here, and you can see it is actually thinner than the Shaman. So I did want to point that out, or just in case you're familiar with the Praxis, here it is against the Praxis. I wanted to point that out because I think that's important with this knife, and we're going to jump into that in just 1 second. Let's check the weight, and we'll circle right back to that. All right, scale's ready. This is probably 3.5, 3.75 ounce range. Yeah, 3.5 ounce. Most of Civivis come in at about that 3.5 ounce weight, which is a really good weight for EDC. You're not going to feel that too much in the pocket, and it's going to be very comfortable to carry. It's going to be very comfortable to handle. But what I wanted to jump into is the thinness of this, because it's solid construction. It's solid aluminum that they milled down so that this FRN backspacer, I keep wanting to say G10, this FRN backspacer onlay that is integral can be laid on top, and that's how it's constructed. So when you disassemble this, it does take a torque or socket style wrench for it to come off of the FRN, but you don't have to take that off to disassemble that, unless you can't get to this screw back here. Now, I was able to kind of get it in there, but it was rubbing against the pocket clip, so I did go find the size for this, and I want to say it's like a 6. I can't remember, but we'll cover that in disassembly. This comes out, and then these screw down into the scales. There's no standoffs. It doesn't need it because it has this whole piece back here, but it's a very interesting approach to the construction. You have some tiny, tasteful speed holes here just for aesthetics. They really don't serve any purpose. Neither does this hole in the back. This is a full-size knife, so if you're putting it on for decoration, that's all that it's for. You don't need it for any additional grip. Even if you're coming back into the normal grip, you have tons of room on this knife. No issues whatsoever. I really like this pocket clip too. It's really well done. It has, you're able to reverse it. It has the slot go all the way through, and I'm going to try to line that so you can see it, but the slot goes all the way through so you can pick it up and reverse it. And the way that it comes out here, they curved it sharply, but it does ride all the way deep, so my pants just leave that much of the knife hanging out. And it's really well done. I don't feel it at all in hand. I can tell that it's there because it's on top of the scale, but it's not putting any pressure anywhere on the palm of my hand. And this is really comfortable. They got the thickness right here. It's nice and contoured, so it's super comfortable in hand. The forward finger choil has plenty of space to go all the way up to the second knuckle for detailed work. Or if you're gripping it, this you would just put in my opinion, first knuckle here, and then the rest of the hand will wrap around the knife, and you have a very comfortable grip that you're able to power through any cuts that you would need to be in this position for. So ergos on this are outstanding. Really nice. I love the thickness of it. Everything really works from an ergonomic perspective. I have no issues whatsoever. They have a little glass breaker on here, but that doesn't bother me too much because it's actually super low profile. It's not really that noticeable over top of the very thin bolt that they have on here for the install. You have a really well done button lock on here. Now the first one that I got the gray with the black FRN and the stonewash blade, which was really well done, but the button for some reason was really bound up, and I'm not quite sure what was going on with it. I didn't even want to bother with it. I reached out to the merchant and sent it back, and since I was sending it back, I forgot that this was K110, which we'll circle back to in a moment as well. But the coated blade on K110 is just going to help give peace of mind for corrosive resistance, but I really like the black and black with the drab green. I think all of this ties together really nicely. I think it's a very nice aesthetic. With D2, K110, you're not going to have to worry too much because that coating usually drops the HRC down a little bit, which usually affects the toughness of the knife and how long it'll hold an edge. But this being K110, aka D2, already has phenomenal edge retention. So it'll be a little bit tougher. It's not going to have as good an edge retention as the satin blade finish that may finish out like the point higher, but I don't really worry about that with K110 or D2. This has a really thin blade stock. I mean, really thin. I've been cutting with it, and I'm kind of surprised. You might be able to see it. Checking the screen now, see if I can find it. There's some blemishes here where it's cut. I can see them. They're right here, here, here. The coating's holding up well. I debated when I got it blackwashing it, honestly, to see what it would look like with a little bit of a stone wash on it to give it that blackwash look. I think that would look a little bit better than the straight DLC coating. I've done that on a couple of Kaisers that were coated, and they came out really nice. The K110 has a good edge. I feel like they polished it a little too much. I like D2 K110. I like a toothier edge because of the bite that it has into thicker materials, but this does slice really, really nice. And because it is so thin and it's super, I had to look at it closely. I thought it was a hollow grind. That's how thin it is. It gets down to a wicked thin edge down here. Really happy with the performance. The button on this one, getting back to that, the first one was bound up. This one here, flawless, and I've not heard anyone else that picked up a Sentinel Strike having any type of issues with this whatsoever. And I'm happy with the action on this one, and it's very much like more of the more recent button locks that I've encountered from Civivi, Sencut. They are really well done. They're tuned with a really nice detent, very smooth action, and there's like a tiny catch when you disengage the button or push it in to unlock it to close it, and it's not really sticky. It doesn't create resistance, but you kind of get a little bit of that feedback, and to me that's fine. I feel like that's going to keep it from having any type of lock rock going down the road as it smooths and breaks in. But great utility shape on this blade. It's going to be really good for your power cuts and push cuts through materials. It's going to be really good if you have to do detailed work where you have to get down out on the tip and you're trying to draw a precision cut, whatever it is that you're getting into. It's going to be great for getting into packages. You're going to be able to get that tip is so acute enough where you can get it in to some tape and just work way out on the tip to open packages, which I've used this on quite a few just to test it. It's really hard to find the K110. I love that Civivi does this, just a very minimal branding on the blade whatsoever. I wish they would have done. I thought I had a Civivi where they blacked out the logo. I get it. It's small enough and it's unobtrusive enough, but I think if that would have been blacked out, that would have been just that much cooler on this particular variant anyway. But I really like this. It's a great knife. It's very well done. I really am digging that they're doing these thinner profiles with the aluminum one-piece construction. There's less that has to be messed with on this knife, so I appreciate that as well. Opening hole works really well for me for the reverse flick way down here. Oh, these thumb studs. These are the same thumb studs that were on the Cubit and the Serene, which is the Simcut variant. I am digging these new thumb studs. Oh yeah, and on the Vision. So I love these new thumb studs. They are different from. Oh, I don't have one out here. I don't have an old thumb stud knife out here. I was getting ready to grab the Praxis, but that's a flipper knife. But I really am digging these newer thumb studs. I feel like the older ones kind of resembled the I want to say the bug out style thumb studs, which are good, really good thumb studs. But I really like these a lot. I can get grip on them if I want to reverse flick off of them. Outside of that one where I missed a little bit, I can get them pretty good. I feel like they have less steps on them, or yeah, it looks like they have maybe one step in there from what I'm looking at, and it's just enough to kind of catch on the edge there. But I mean, you can go from the top. The top's a little bit pointy. I like to hit up from underneath that thumb stud, and the action's really good. And then you can come up if you want to, but for me, I feel like hitting that lower one is just a little bit more satisfying, and then my hand is in more of a natural position to go right into the grip. Ceramic bearings, phosphor bronze washers, spring tension is good for that button lock. Stop pin's nice and big, solid, so I feel like this thing could take some abuse. Now, I haven't heard of anybody having issues with plunge lock knives and trying to use them a little bit more hard, but I just don't know how strong the spring is. All of the pressure, truthfully, is going to be going into the stop pin if you're cutting through stuff. So it should hold up well and it shouldn't affect the lock at all. The lockout should remain solid. I don't know what you would be doing outside of prying that would start to cause an issue with the plunge lock. The plunge lock is just locking the knife out and keeping it in position, but when you start to put the pressure, the pivot and that stop pin are what are taking all the force that you're exerting onto the knife. So it should be fine. We'll see. Long term, we'll see. But what do you think about the knife in itself? Because there's one more thing I want to touch on that I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to talk about the build quality, which is really well done. The finishes on here are really good. The knife itself, the construction, the thickness of the blade, or the thinness of the blade is really good. There is a little bit of a issue that I do have with this particular model, and that is going to be that this knife is close to $90. And I get that it probably cost a little bit more to work with aluminum, and I get that it probably takes a little bit more time to make this one piece constructed unit that has to, you can't have gaps on this type of build. It has to be really well done and fit perfectly when you put it together. They even have the surrounding parts of the material over the pocket clip done perfectly. Like, this is extremely well built. The quality is outstanding. But I can't help but feel like this being close to $90 is still a bit much. What could have changed my opinion of that is instead of using K110, if they actually did something with 154 cm or even S30V at $90. I think that would have been even more interesting with this knife. The K110, I'm sure, is heat treated well. It's going to hold an edge really well if you're not trying to pry with this knife, which I wouldn't do anyway. It's a very thin blade stock. That's not what it's intended for. It's intended for power cutting, utility cutting. That's what this blade shape is made for. Um, I'm sure it's going to perform and hold up fine, and I'm really happy with the knife. I just think it's a little expensive. I think it should have come in probably like 70 to 75. I think that $10 difference would have made a huge difference with this one. They were still in stock when I checked a week later. I think this may have sold out if it would have been a little bit more of an interesting steel. I think the steel potentially, that or button lock burnout, because everything has had button locks, it seemed like, this year, even when they make a model that doesn't initially have one, like the Pirate or the Echo. I'm sorry, I got my knives mixed up. They also offered it in a button lock configuration as well. So there could be the fact that it's button lock burnout, or it could be that it launched alongside the Vision FG, which has the super lock, which if you couldn't afford the Wii Vision, this is a really compelling option because the updates they made to it, to me, make this version of the knife better. Not the materials, just this version of the knife better. But I like this knife. And while it is still, it's a little expensive, for what you're getting material wise. I think the aluminum is an upgrade over steel liners with G10 or micarta onlays. And I think if they could have done like a Gmaskus backspacer, that could have been more interesting. But saying that, looking at this FRN is really well done, and I like the color segment together. So I'm a little torn. You could wait for it to run a sale, or maybe they adjust the price down to like $76, knocking, some money off of it. It'd be worth picking up. If you like the shape, if that's the type of blade shape that you like larger knives, you like a lightweight knife that's going to carry nice, it feels like the finishes feel really good. Whatever they're coating on these aluminum scales, whatever they're using, I don't know if it's a ceramic coating, a powder coating, I don't know what it is, but it's really well done. I like the knife. I can recommend it if you feel like it's a knife that you like or are interested in, but you weren't sure about K110. K110 is going to have phenomenal edge retention. Just drop it every so often if you're using it through nasty stuff like cardboard often, and it'll hold a good edge. Even if it doesn't, this has a really thin blade stock. You can sharpen this, put a more toothy edge on it, which is going to last longer, even longer, which is going to be crazy, and you should be good to go. But did you pick up a Sentinel Strike? Would you? Let me know down in the comments. I'd be curious to hear what you have to say about this particular one. I'm going to give a shout out to everyone out there that leaves the comments, the likes, and is subscribed. I appreciate all the support, and I love you guys. Hope you have a fantastic week. Until next time, peace.